exactly like all of the pop guys.
Yeah.
First of all, it was a good thing because I knew I couldn't.
Autism is often talked about as something rare or unusual, almost like a distant medical condition that affects only a few people. But when you look closely, it becomes clear that this idea is no longer true. In families, classrooms, playgrounds, and even workplaces, more and more children and adults are being diagnosed with autism every year. Many parents discover it through small signs, maybe a child who speaks a little later, or one who avoids eye contact, or a child who has a unique way of expressing ideas or emotions. Sometimes the differences are barely noticeable. Sometimes they stand out. But what remains consistent is that autism is no longer a strange or uncommon experience. It is becoming part of everyday life for many families, and understanding it well is one of the most important things we can do for the next generation. Most mothers and fathers only realize something is different when their child begins to show behaviors that seem out of the ordinary compared to other children the same age. Maybe the child does not respond when their name is called, or they prefer to play alone, or they get overwhelmed by loud sounds or changes in routine. Some children avoid eye contact while others repeat certain actions again and again. Parents often describe it as a moment of confusion, even fear, because they don't know whether these signs are temporary or something more meaningful. Many families go through a long journey of doubt before receiving a diagnosis, and that journey can be exhausting, emotional, and full of questions. When a parent hears the word autism for the first time in relation to their child, the reaction is usually filled with uncertainty. It's not the word itself that scares them, but what they think it implies. They wonder if their child will struggle in school, if they will make friends, if they will communicate properly, or if they will someday be able to live independently. This emotional reaction is natural because every parent, deep down, wants their child to have a happy and fulfilling life. The fear comes from not knowing what the future will look like. But something that very few people say out loud is that autism, when understood early and supported properly, can be managed in a way that allows the child to grow beautifully, learn well, and build strong connections with others. The more knowledge a parent has, the more empowered they feel. Autism is not a simple condition with a clear beginning and end. It is a spectrum, which means it appears differently in every child. Some children speak early but struggle with social cues. Some communicate perfectly but get overwhelmed by textures, lights, or sounds. Some avoid physical affection, while others look for constant comfort and repetition. This wide range of behaviors is why understanding autism requires more than a quick internet search or a few conversations. It requires patience, observation, and a willingness to see the world the way the child sees it. Many parents only realize this after months of confusion or frustration when they finally understand that their child is not being difficult. They are simply communicating in a different way. One of the things almost nobody tells parents is how the parent-child bond can dramatically shape the child's progress. A warm, predictable, and emotionally safe relationship can transform the life of an autistic child. Many adults with autism later explained that what helped them most was not a specific therapy, but having someone who understood their pace, their needs, and their style of learning. When a child feels safe and seen, their brain becomes more receptive to learning. Scientific studies consistently show that the brain of a child with autism reacts positively to routines, clear communication, and emotional connection. This means that small daily habits done with love and consistency can make a huge difference. Yet many parents never hear this said so clearly. Many mothers feel guilty because they think they might have done something wrong before or during pregnancy. This is a common misconception. Autism is not caused by parenting style, emotional distance, or anything that the mother did during pregnancy. Researchers have found that autism is the result of a combination of genetic and neurological factors, not parental mistakes. This is something every family should hear early, because guilt is heavy, and guilt slows down the process of helping the child. When parents let go of guilt, they open the door to calmer, more effective decision-making. One challenge that many families face is that autistic children often express emotions differently. A typical child might cry because they are sad, but an autistic child might cry because a noise startled them, or because their routine changed unexpectedly, or because they cannot find the words to express frustration. Parents sometimes interpret these behaviors as tantrums or disobedience, but in reality, they are signs of emotional overflow. When you understand the triggers, you begin to see patterns, and these patterns help parents respond with calm instead of fear. This shift in perspective is one of the greatest turning points for many families. Another thing rarely explained is how incredibly sensitive many autistic children are to sensory information. A bright light can feel painful. A buzzing refrigerator might sound like thunder. A clothing tag may feel like sandpaper. A crowded room might create the sensation of being trapped. These sensory differences can lead to behaviors that parents misunderstand. When a child covers their ears, refuses certain foods, or becomes upset in a supermarket, it's not misbehavior. It is an attempt to cope with the world that feels too loud or too fast. Once parents understand this, they can adjust the environment and reduce the child's stress dramatically.
Language development is also one of the most misunderstood aspects of autism. Some children start speaking later and parents panic, thinking the delay is permanent. However, many children on the spectrum develop speech gradually, especially when communication is encouraged in natural ways through routines and daily interactions. Some may use gestures or pictures before forming words. Others may talk but struggle with back-and-forth conversation. It is essential to realize that communication is far more than words. It includes tone, body language, eye movements, and emotional expression. When parents learn to respond to the child's style of communication, the child feels understood and becomes more willing to try new forms of expressing themselves. Another key point is that early intervention can be extremely effective, but not in the way people imagine. Many assume that early intervention means intense therapy sessions or strict programs. In reality, one of the strongest forms of early intervention comes from parents themselves, through simple daily habits like naming emotions, maintaining routines, offering choices, playing together, and speaking slowly and clearly. When parents engage with the child in a way that matches the child's rhythm, the brain begins to organize information better. This is why professional therapy often includes training for parents, because they are the ones who spend the most time with the child. A major factor that influences a child's progress is the emotional state of the parent. Children with autism are highly sensitive to the emotional atmosphere around them. If the home is filled with stress, arguments, or constant frustration, the child's nervous system reacts strongly, making behaviors more intense. On the other hand, a calm and predictable environment helps the child regulate their emotions. This does not mean parents must be perfect. It means they must be aware of how their own emotions influence the child's ability to cope. When parents understand this dynamic, the entire home becomes more peaceful. Many families also discover that routines are not just helpful, they are essential. Autistic children often depend on routines to make sense of the world. Routine is not just a habit, it is a source of safety. When children know what will happen next, they relax, and their learning ability increases. When routines change unexpectedly, the child may feel lost or overwhelmed. By preparing the child ahead of time or maintaining consistency, parents can prevent many emotional outbursts. Routine gives structure, and structure gives confidence. Something very important that people rarely say is that autistic children often develop deep strengths. Many have extraordinary memory, creativity, focus, honesty, or attention to detail. Some see patterns that others miss. Some develop a strong passion for specific subjects and become highly knowledgeable. These strengths are real and powerful, but they only flourish when adults recognize and encourage them. Too often, the world focuses only on the challenges, but every child on the spectrum has a hidden potential waiting to be nurtured. Schools play a big role too, and many parents find themselves having to advocate for their child because not all teachers understand autism well. A teacher who believes the child is misbehaving will respond differently than one who understands that the child is struggling with sensory overload or communication difficulties. Parents often need to explain the child's needs clearly and calmly, helping the school create an environment where the child can succeed. When teachers and parents work together, the results are extraordinary. Many children become more social, more confident, and more academically engaged when the adults in their life collaborate. It is also important to remember that every autistic child grows and changes. Autism does not mean the child will remain the same forever. Just like any child, they learn, adapt, overcome challenges, and develop new abilities. Some children who barely speak at age 2 become excellent communicators at age 8. Some who struggle with social interaction in early childhood eventually form strong friendships as teenagers. Progress is not linear, and every step forward deserves celebration. One of the things nobody mentions is how lonely parents can feel. Many keep their worries to themselves, afraid of being judged. Some families feel isolated because they think no one understands what they are going through. But when parents finally connect with other families who have children on the spectrum, they realize how many experiences they share. The relief is enormous. Building a support network makes the journey much lighter, and it allows parents to exchange advice that is practical and based on real life. The most important truth, and the one many parents only discover much later, is that autistic children respond most powerfully to love combined with structure. Affection without routine can confuse them. Routine without affection can make them rigid. But when parents offer warmth, predictability, patience, and clear communication, the child feels grounded. They begin to trust the world more, and that trust becomes the foundation for growth. Autism is not a tragedy, nor is it a failure. It is a different way of interpreting life. And when parents understand this, they can guide their children with confidence instead of fear. No one has a perfect manual. No one gets it right every day. But every small effort, every calm explanation, every gentle correction, every moment of patience makes the child feel safe. And when a child feels safe, they learn. This is something rarely explained to families at the beginning. Autistic children often develop deeply loving bonds with the people who understand them. It may take time, and it may not always look the way people expect, but the connection is real and powerful. When parents take time each day to connect through simple habits, talking slowly, maintaining eye contact at the child's pace, sharing activities, or just sitting together quietly, the relationship becomes the child's anchor. This bond becomes the foundation that helps them navigate the world with more confidence. Autism is not something a child grows out of, but it is something they grow through. They grow with support, with stable routines, with emotional safety, and with parents who learn along the way. Every milestone, no matter how small, is meaningful. And every child on the spectrum has the potential to live a dignified, joyful, purposeful life when surrounded by understanding and patience.